Hey everyone, welcome to another fun-filled episode. Actually, our 50th episode of Career Retrospectives right here on the Super Review Show. I am joined by my two incredible friends and co-hosts, Kyle and Mike. What's going on, guys?
Apparently it's the midlife crisis episode.
Oh God. Yeah,
What
clearly.
have we walked into? What have you guys walked
I'm not sure what to tell you there, but no, as the title of this podcast for our 50th one. So last week we spun the wheel for one of our last choices that we did on the wheel. And this one landed on my pick, and it was Billy Joel's The River of Dreams from 1993. Now, it obviously was his last record. For those who don't know, this was his last record that he did ever. He did a classical albums record in 2001, 2000. It was just instrumental piano pieces that came out. But this is his most recent to date set of his most recent work of pop or pop rock music or just rock music in general. From basically his career standpoint, it was his 30 years ago in 1993. He put out his last album, which The River of Dreams. I have many different connections to this record. I've gone back and I've been a lifelong Joel fan my whole life, and outside of loving other things like Metallica and other things like Van Halen, I've always had a soft spot for Joel. For whatever reason, the Piano Man always just stuck out to me. But this record in particular, being that it was his last one, for some reason had some sort of extra weight to it. I actually do have, and I have it just next to me for good keeping right now, a vinyl pressing literally next to me as we're recording. A 1993 vinyl pressing of this record. I know that sounds crazy. That's ridiculous. I know, but it's crazy. I'll show it on camera towards the end. But yeah, that's just something to show you right there. Big fan of Joel. I have all of his albums on vinyl. Big Billy Joel fan. But this album to me has always been one of the, lyrically speaking, and I can touch on more stuff. I feel like as this conversation progresses about this record. But I'm very curious to hear what Kyle and Mike have to say about this one too. But I'm really excited to talk about it. So I don't know about you guys, but let's go into Kyle for a second. Kyle, what do you got?
Yeah, believe it or not, this is the first full-length album I've listened to from Billy Joel. I've always been a big fan of the singles and the hits. Just never been an artist that I've gravitated towards listening to full albums for. I have. For years, I've had the CD, the Essential Billy Joel, like that 2-disc thing that they put out, and that was great. But that's always where I've stood with him, was the singles. And I'll just say right now, this album surprised me quite a bit. Ups, downs, I'll get into that specifically, but I enjoyed this significantly more than I thought I would for a whole album.
All right, cool. And Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, I actually am kind of coming from the same school of the best of, and I feel like the best ofs is kind of spoiled a lot of the when you hear a song you've heard off of the best of, you're just it's cool to hear it for the first time within a CD, special or an album, especially if it changes, if it's like a change of pace in the album, where it sits and the kind of elements it brings. And I feel I'm that kind of guy with most artists that I don't get super in depth with, and Billy Joel is definitely one of those. So yeah, coming into this, I was definitely blind to the full album experience, and yeah, I definitely was surprised as well. Like I said, I'll get into that more often with I found really interesting the major influences that I heard from other artists that drew from this album. Being that final album, I think a lot of people probably spent a lot of time listening to this as kind of it's a bittersweet album because it's the final album. So a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of other artists would listen to this again and again, kind of like that idea of maybe if I listen to it enough, he'll eventually release an album and I'll stay.
He'll come back.
Yeah, I'll just send some positive vibes his way, whatever. But it'll be fun to go over it by song and kind of give my interpretation of everything. And
yeah, cool. And just as they mentioned, it was his last album that came out, like we said, 30 years ago now at this point. But let's we've shared our initial interactions and whatnot and our initial thoughts. Let's jump over to the track listing and stuff like that too. And it says, for those who are listening to us, we're on the Wikipedia page. We're just going to talk about that too. And yeah, so let's go into the track listing for a second, shall we? All the songs were written and composed by the man himself, Billy Joel. And there's only 10 songs on the record, and it goes like this. It goes, No Man's Land, The Great Wall of China, Blonde Over Blue, A Minor Variation, Shades of Gray, All About Soul, Lullaby, Goodnight, My Angel, The River Dreams title track, and 2,000 Years. And then his last song on his last record, Famous Last Words.
Wait, JT, so you're saying this wasn't written by a team of 6 people and Billy Joel was not just involved in 3 songs?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
you know, there was like
who are you attacking here, Mike?
No. I was
No,
just
you're
surprised. I'm not used to seeing all songs are written and composed by one name. I'm just not used to that. So I have to reset my brain back to, it's like the little bowling thing comes down and clears the pins out, I'm just trying to reset myself. That's all. No attack on any specific country artist that we've recently listened to. Completely unrelated. All right.
Maroon 5 story. What? Look, Brian, wait, what are we talking about?
Look, Brian.
Is he just dab on camera? Oh my
Yeah, I did on camera.
It's okay. I do it too. It's 2023.
It's
Sure. No, but do you want me to go first for this one?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
All right, you got it. So, there were 4 singles that got released from this record, and the 4 singles that got released are the ones highlighted in blue. No duh. No Man's Land, All About Soul, Lullaby, and The River of Dreams. Without going too much into detail on it, because I want to hear your guys' opinion too. To me, this album has a deeper narrative throughout it, more than most people saw initially. Like, it starts off, to me, the overall arc is that the first song, No Man's Land, is like a man who's like, it opens up with like a lot of guitar. He's very angry. He's in rage. And then it goes into like, kind of like an F you, I can't believe you do that. And I'll explain all that in a little bit, but it's like, the first couple tracks are him being like, I'm angry, I'm upset. And like the first half really is that, like, that whole arc of like going from angry at something or someone. It could be anything. I really don't know the whole gist of it. It could be the record business. It could be someone who screwed him over. I really don't know. But it was like, the opening of it was like, I have no faith in humanity. I'm so angry. I'm so rageful. And then you get to the second side of it after Shades of Gray. It's like the All About Soul side of it comes into it. And it's like, my faith is coming back, and without being religious or anything like that, it's just like he's regaining his humanity again, and humanity with Lullaby, with All About Soul, like she comes away from me in silence and all that stuff. Lullaby is about his daughter. The River Dreams title track is actually about like a gospel-y type of like title track, and it has it's got like these gospel elements to it, and yet it was the biggest hit on the charts. It was like number 3 on the Hot 100 in 1994. Hard to believe, but it was. In the midst of grunge, in the midst of Nirvana and Pearl Jam, Billy Joel had a huge like chart hit. You know what I mean? I could talk about like all these songs in depth for like the next 20 minutes, truthfully, but I do want to get your guys' opinion of them in a minute. But I will say my standout tracks to me are probably, it's so hard to pick for me personally. It's hard to pick up like a standout track. I mean, Mike's gonna completely just jump at me when I said, but the title track is a favorite of mine.
Yep, title track.
Yeah, title track. Well, a title track fan.
I feel like on this album, that song is one of the most like played radio songs. Like when it came to like the kind of like the classic. I wouldn't say classic rock, but more like I would say it definitely got play on the oldies radio station back in the day when I was growing up. Like you heard it on there a lot. It has an oldies feel to it, and it is one of those songs that's just the most recognizable songs on the entire album, if not like of his entire obviously besides his super hits. It's one of those songs that a lot of people knew from his career.
Back in the day, it was like a huge. In the 90s, it was like a huge like Hot 100 like charting hit. It gave record momentum, if you will. But for me, like if I had to go to my standout tracks so early on in this conversation, because like it's so hard to pick. I would say though, All About Soul for me stands out for whatever reason. Like, just lyrically, he really came into a form with that one, for whatever reason. 2000 Years, believe it or not, because this came out in '93. He was very hopeful when he wrote that song. He was very like, all right, we're getting closer to the end of the record, that writing process. It's getting closer to the year 2000. I mean, I want to look forward to the future. I'm excited for like he was really like saying like I can't wait for like the arts to rule and how everything's gonna be great in the new millennium or whatever. And then he'll say this too: is like 9/11 happened, and he was very destroyed after that for a while. He was in depression for a long time and whatnot. And then famous last words. You listen to the words like literally he's saying goodbye. So, but I mean, like I said, I'm going off. Forgive me, but it's like. For me, All About Soul, and I heard a minor variation live from him at a concert. There was a live debut of it back in 2018, so that was a big one for me. But I would say like no, the standout tracks for me. I'm going off. Forgive me. The standout tracks for me are I would say All About Soul, The River of Dreams, 2000 Years, and actually for whatever reason,
Also, most notably, 2000 Years is technically the time that Jesus walked on earth 2000 years ago. Is like, that's the official timestamp. You hear a lot of artists say 2000 years. 2000 years is the official. So I don't know if it's like a ref, because the song has tons of like angels and prophets and talking about like
right.
I'm still with you 2000 years. Like it has a, like you said, it has a very gospel / religious kind of
A weird vibe, yeah.
Yeah, whoa, easy with the weird word, but
sorry.
We slap you through the.
I've been hit through a camera. What?
Yeah.
No, but like honestly, to me, it's hard to for me. This is a really hard one to depict a favorite song outside of like a title track like River Dreams and All About Soul. But for whatever reason, this album to me it's so cohesive. It's so like from start to finish, it tells a narrative of like someone like how like they're beat down the beaten path and how they come back from it. To me, that's just so like I'm not going to name who this person is, but one of my friends went through a breakup, I think in 2021. And I said to her, I know what you're going through right now because, she got really hurt by this person. And I said, I hate to do this to you, but listen to Billy Joel's The River of Dreams because it tells a narrative of how you can get out of it. If you listen to the words very carefully and listen to how the music was made, it tells you how to, to me, it did. And I wanted to see if, and she didn't. She's like, that helped me out. I mean, that's it's not for everyone. It's that wouldn't work for everyone, but for me and my friend, it did. So that's the power of music and what albums can do. Full albums, that is. So, but yeah, I've shared enough of my time. I'm very curious to see what Kyle has to say.
All right. Well, we have actually very different standout tracks.
Okay.
So I'll start by saying I slightly disagree in terms of it being a cohesive album in a way, only because of a couple tracks in the beginning. So this, particularly in the beginning, it kind of feels like each song was lifted from a different album. Like the sounds of the first few songs are so vastly different from each other that when I was listening to it, I'll just go song by song and I'll explain then. No Man's Land, super surprised for me on this one. Straight 10 out of 10 song. I love the lyrics, about like, to me, it's like commercialization of things. And I think it's still relevant, if not more relevant, 30 years later now. The lead guitar on this part was incredible. Very well done. Really gives me Springsteen meets like U2 type vibes here, which generally I'm not the biggest fan of either of those two acts, especially Springsteen, but it takes the good aspects of those artists and kind of merges them in a way I really like. It explores a harder rock style, kind of more like modern for the time hard rock. That was a pleasant surprise, not really used to that from Billy Joel. I'm not sure how much that's incorporated on his previous works. Like I said, I only know the big hits, and usually those weren't the more hard rock style hits from them. So then we got into Great Wall of China, which was still good. It's like an 8 out of 10 for me. I like that the verse has this cool like funk vibe going. and I really like the slap bass incorporation here. The chorus kind of brings it down a bit for me. It's a little bit more standard pop rock. I was hoping it did a little bit more. Also, just want to point out that the bridge of this song, I don't know which one came first, but the bridge of this song is exactly the song Wannabe by the Spice Girls.
Oh my
Go
god!
back and listen to them side by side. It's the exact same thing.
That's
I have to
Not
go back
sure
and
which
listen to
came
that.
first, but highly recommend it. And then we get to the very low point on the album for me. The next two tracks.
Mm.
Now, this is what I was talking about, where everything sounds non-cohesive for the first half of this record. No Man's Land is like hard rock. Then you get into like a more funk type sound that goes into like pop rock with Great Wall of China. Then you get to Blonde Over Blue, which this is a 5 out of 10 for me. It's not good. It's not bad. Not much happens at all. This one takes more inspiration from like 60s or 70s rather than the more modern takes on the first two tracks.
Yeah.
It's too long. Really not much happens. This also, one of my notes that I wrote down for this one, it sounds something about the vocals and the lyrics on it sound like Stewie Griffin from Family Guy doing a Billy Joel parody.
Oh my god!
You know, like those episodes where they do like the musical number and he pretends to be another artist. That's exactly what this reminded me of.
Oh my god!
But it's not bad. It's just it's a track that if it was on, I wouldn't turn it off. Very department story song. Then we get to the low point for me. A Minor Variation. I really didn't like this one. This one, again, totally different sound. This one, even outside that 60s, 70s inspiration from the track before, goes into kind of a bluesy, almost kind of like Motown inspired sound. It didn't hold my attention. And honestly, I started skipping it at subsequent listens of the record. Really didn't jive with this one. 4 out of 10. And it picks up a little bit more when you get to Shades of Grey. Back to that more rock sound. The guitar tone on this one actually reminds me a lot of Scorpions. Specifically that tone, specifically the rhythm guitar. The bass is great on the track. Really, the one thing that brings down the most is like the ba ba ba's that he does in there. Drives me nuts. Nice song, nothing too special though. 7 out of 10. And then it starts to really pick up again, even more. All About Soul, 9 out of 10. Only thing that brings it down is I wish that the chorus was a little more powerful. I was expecting, when I got to the chorus, I was expecting more of like a soaring kind of anthemic chorus. I didn't really get that, so it brought it down a little bit. It's a very nice, like kind of like very nice like love song type thing. Love the lyrics on it. But then we get to by far the highlight for me. This is an 11. Wow. I loved this song. This is what you expect. Album. Like this is like a quintessential Billy Joel sound. When you think Billy Joel, this is the sound you think of. The piano in it is beautiful. The vocals on it, incredible. The lyrics, very heartfelt. And I like the light orchestration behind it. It's not overdone. It's like used perfectly lightly in the background. Honestly, this is one of my favorite Billy Joel tracks. It in general, absolutely incredible. Actually gave me goosebumps toward the end. By far, best track on the record. Gotta go to an 11 on this one. And then we take a nosedive.
Oh no!
What?
This is the only song I knew
Plot twist
on this record going into it.
Yeah.
It's not bad. I'll say that. It's just not my cup of tea. Like it's well executed. It's a cool idea and I respect it. It's just not for me. It has like that jungle tribal type vibe.
Yeah.
Again, it's well executed. Lyrically, it's very good. It's just not for me. I remember this song being on like the contemporary oldies radio back when I was a kid. Again, not bad. It's just not my thing. 2000 Years. We got 8 out of 10 here. Another classic Billy Joel sound. Doesn't hit anywhere near the highs of Lullaby though. It's lyrically good. I like that it kind of discusses like hopes for the like future generations. That's what I got out of it. Don't think we lived up to those hopes at all. The moving song, it's certain transitions in it do sound a bit off to me, and that's what brings it down. But then we get to the closer on here, Famous Last Words. We got another 9 out of 10. Very fitting for a closing track, not only for an album, but for being the final like real studio track that he did. Really kind of has that autobiographical moment on the record that just ties everything together, not just the record, but his whole career. Really good bookend to that. It could have been pushed to a 10 if it had like another bridge or another movement to the song. It stayed very much the same throughout, which I understand the reasoning for it. But one more like even just short little bridge or some variation in there could have pushed it up to a 10 out of 10. But incredible song, 9 out of 10 on it. Really good bookend for it. And I really want to point out one thing I love about this record is the production. Every instrument stands out. This is kind of what we talked about I guess months ago now when we talked about the AFI record, where nothing was muddied. There was no instrument that was buried in the mix under another instrument. You could hear the guitar, the bass, piano, drums, vocals clearly on every song. There was no song where I was like, oh, I got to struggle to hear the bass line going on. It was always there. And it was just very well done and clean. So that's my track by track. Standouts, obviously Lullaby, Famous Last Words, and No Man's Land are my big three from here.
All righty.
All right. All right, man, Kyle. Besides a couple areas, it's amazing how in sync we are. I feel like something's the end of the world is coming. Like I feel like
they got it right.
We should be afraid of this because
we had Luke Bryan to offset that.
Yeah. We've had some dark days. So, but I mean, the light is here. Yeah. So I mean, Kyle's definitely on point. Although I would disagree with Blonde Over Blue being like 70s or 60s. I definitely feel like that's more of a like Roy Orbison feeling, like 50s.
Yeah, I can even go back that far if we're talking.
Yeah. But I mean, you're in the neighborhood. So yeah, starting.
I was thinking more 60s than anything, but yeah, I could go back to 50s on that. Definitely has that old sound.
Billy has said on record that actually was the influence for that song was Roy Orbison. You know that, right?
Oh yeah, I love Roy Orbison, but and it's funny that it is not one of my like tracks. So I know I'm in sync with Kyle. This is so freaking weird, but River of Dreams. Yeah, no, I can't believe it. We're on the River of Dreams right now because something's happening. All right. So yeah, River of Dreams starts off really strong of an album. The first two songs are both No Man's Land, The Great Wall of China, are strong pop power tunes, nice groove, nice beat, great memorable chorus. Although I agree with Kyle. Yeah, the U2 I feel like U2 definitely borrowed from this song for their Vertigo song. Reminds me so much of that song. And what was the other song you said, Kyle?
I said Springsteen.
Okay, yeah, I can see where you're coming from. But man, 10 out of 10. Absolutely, like shocked that I never heard the song before.
No, dude, same. When I turned this on, I was like blown away.
Yeah, and I was just like, whoa, like this sounds so classic. It sounds so like something I should have heard. And it just goes to show you that like just because you listen to a best of doesn't mean that the best of is gonna fit within your parameters. And I feel like in a lot of ways, the more I realize that the world we live in is crazy and the people around us are like, completely like just following in a path that someone else is just setting for them, the more it makes me want to listen to full albums like this and draw my own love from the music rather than have them tell me what I should love. So kind of approaching that, I came into this album with like, oh, I'm probably going to only like the River of Dreams song because it's the one I know. But I was like, whoa, like this song is like, it's definitely a good start. Like, and I love when an album starts good like that. And then although Great Wall of China has become to that song a little less memorable in the course, Kyle nailed it on the head. I was like, it's a fun beat. I love the bass. I love some of the orchestral stuff going on in the background. You start to see some cool choir parts picking up and backing up the main vocals, like especially in that Shades of Grey song. You have that choir of voices singing in it, which kind of reinforces what JT was kind of saying. You get that choir feel, like some positive, like maybe religious or like kind of hopeful vibe, and then on some of the second half, and then you have like the more like just pissed off. Like the lyrics to No Man's Land are right up my alley. A lot of my own personal, just my own personal writing has touched in this area of like that. We have just pretty much like created this like a terrible kind of environment for ourselves with all of the commercialization and just dumping and creating just one big just enterprise out of the planet that we live on. And it really, I mean, it just struck a note for me. So 8 out of 10 for the Great Wall of China, 10 out of 10 for the No Man's Land, and then we kind of move into.
Far we are. Just want to point out, so far we are spot on.
This is crazy, and
like,
we move
down
into
to the exact rating.
Dude, I know, and that's why I was like, what is going on? Like, someone unplug the planet and plug it back in. But anyway, then we move on to two of my least favorite songs on the album, Blonde Over Blue and Minor Variation. Kind of definitely lower for me in the album. Not terrible songs, better than many other artists have written, but like when I'm flying high and I get brought down, the down is harder than it would have been if you started with those and then kind of moved into some highs. I might not be.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, keep me high, and then it's like, so you're like, it feels worse. Yeah, or it feels worse than it actually is, I think. Yep. But this album is kind of dishing you off many different, and that's something I've always appreciated about Billy Joel, is that he doesn't want to be pigeonholed in a certain kind of sound. Like, he's given you this pop powered rock song. He's given you this bluesy kind of stuff with like variation and a variation, and like the 50s stuff with Blonde Over Blue, and like the feeling you get on River of Dreams has like a little bit of a oldies kind of feel to it as well. With the doo-wop singers in the background, like repeating the in the river of the night, you got that kind of stuff. Like it reminds me of like the doo-wop Motown kind of stuff going on. But then you got these two songs, a little bit just just not feeling the chorus, not feeling what's going on in the song. There's not much going on in the song. I kind of agree with Kyle there. And then you get to Shades of Grey, which
Mike, I'm just curious, funny. What were your ratings for?
Oh, 6, both 6s.
Oh, okay, so I was still lower than you. Damn.
Yeah, you were a little harder on them. I was kind of like appreciating that this like what they give to us, and like I do agree with you in the sense of like the cohesive nature. Like it feels like somebody out there, it feels like someone who made an album who's like, hey, check this out, I can hit many different styles with one album, and I'm gonna go out on a note that's gonna make you not try and pigeonhole me into sounding the same. Like, check this out. And I appreciate that, and he did it well enough to blend his style in without just going, yeah, let me sound like someone else. Like you definitely get that feeling of like the Police with freaking
Sting?
what was Sting with what was the song? It was
which song was it?
I think it was Shades of Grey. No, not Shades of Grey. It was All About Soul, I believe. No, All About Soul. I got to talk about that one. That's the one I want to talk about first before I go back into that. All About Soul should be renamed the one song the Killers completely based their entire career off of. Seriously, if you told me the Killers wrote this, I wouldn't have batted an eye. I'd have been like, yeah, absolutely, it's their song. No. They literally must have worshipped this song. I mean, absolutely freaking worshipped this song. They really have. Like that. It's like so uncanny that I just can't even wrap my mind around it. I was so blown away, and it's actually one of those songs on the album I really love. It was an 8 out of 10 for me, and I was gonna go higher on it, but I was just like, it kind of just sat in this place for me that just like made me feel good, and just kind of kept a consistency. It didn't hit super high, but it just stayed consistent from the whole thing. The chorus was awesome. The music was just had that great kind of just feeling to it. And like you said, it kind of takes a hopeful turn here. Not to go backward, but Shades of Grey, that song is actually really cool in that it feels like it feels like a 70s like Styx rock, kind of like Scorpions. Yeah, like it's got the harmonized guitars on it, which kind of come out and like really make you feel a little more heavy metal. And it's got the lyrics about war and the enemy lines and this and that, which remind me of like something from like, like the 70s kind of prog rock days. But it just has so many, this album hits on so many different elements. Like I said, like you're getting a little bit of everything on this album. And he's just kind of like saying, hey, I can do this, check it out, but I'm going to keep my own soul in it. All about soul. But so Shades of Grey was a 8 out of 10 for me as well. So we're hitting like a lot of similar notes here. So then we get to Lullaby, and I actually at first didn't love this track. I didn't hate it, but I also wasn't like floored by it. It took a little time for me. I listened to it, and like I was hoping it would take some turns vocally that I wanted it to, and it kind of just hovered along. But I liked it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna come back, and and then I hit River of Dreams, which is like it's a 9 out of 10 for me. It's always been one of those songs that I've enjoyed listening to, and just enjoyed that it's just kind of one of the songs that has a lot of elements going on, and it never really get bored with it. But yeah, then I kept coming back to Lullaby, and it's a slow burn. It was like I really enjoyed it, and I was kind of at like a 7, but then I came up to an 8 and stayed at an 8, and was like, yeah, like it's got just a sweet quality to it that just really brings the pace of this album and keeps it cooling down when it needs to cool down, and then picking up where it needs to pick up. Then 2000 Years, actually I really enjoyed the song, the elements of like the Irish kind of song elements, which you get like with the Piano Man kind of sound that from the past kind of returning. And I just really think, and the vocals on this absolutely incredible. Like it was just like you really get to see all the aspects of Billy Joel on display here. And then just kind of came down to the end with sorry, I'm getting lost here. 2000 Years, and then Famous Last Words. Famous Last Words was actually a really cool upbeat song, kind of reminded me of ELO in a little bit.
Yeah, I got that too.
Yeah, and I was actually kind of really I was like happy that this ended the album in such a way. We've had this lately. All of us have had this effect of having all the albums we've picked or listened to just have these ends that kind of just really leave you like, what? And this is not one of those moments. The end is done well. It's exactly what it needs to be. 8 out of 10. We have a lot of like a solid album. Didn't blow me away in some of the songs that I was hoping it would, but definitely made me like, man, I need to have an album like this in my collection and kind of listen to it again and again. Yeah. So I was actually very pleased, and well done, JT. I'm glad you introduced this album. So
I'm glad I could. And it's funny, just to touch on some of the points both of you made, like I have listened to, now for those you don't know who don't have XM, when the Billy Joel channel returns to XM, whenever it would return, he would go, they play a snippet of him talking about a song from an album, and they then realize, hey, what if we do a sequential track by track of that, him talking about a song, then playing the song from the album, and then they would do the for a whole album on Sirius XM, which is pretty cool. And he talked about this whole album from start to finish. That's how me listening to it, I'm like, oh my god. So the Great Wall of China is about like, No Man's Land is in a rage. He's having a lot of like, as you both touched on like the lyrics of it, like, oh my god, and
like a rage, like when he was playing in Russia and he was like slamming.
He's slamming the piano.
I love that video.
There is video of that online if you want to check that out. But no, but like the Great Wall of China he said it on record. He's like, that's about someone who screwed you over.
Wait, it's not about the Great Wall of China?
Sadly, no. Well, think about it for a second.
I feel lied to now.
Oh my god!
Knocking a point from my rating.
Oh
Cocky.
no. But it's like, if you think about it though, seriously, we could have gone all the way to the Great Wall of China had you had a little more faith in me.
Mm,
That's, I mean, that's the chorus. And
yeah.
you could have had, we could have had a class. We could have he's kind of like, dissing. Those you don't know, in like the late 80s, he was like into like 1990 or 91, he was like really screwed over with like financial trouble. So he toured like crazy then, just to raise cash. And then he put out lyrically, they touched on that a little bit. Then Blonde Over Blue, you're right. Roy Orbison very much influenced, like Blonde Over Blue. I'm not gonna, don't sue us. Like, and a minor variation to me was like, I know you guys gave your ratings for it. The reason why that one had like a little bit more, like when I heard it live, I was like, oh my god, like I can't believe he's playing that live. But but one of the things he touched on was with a minor variation was like you can kind of tell in the music like it's getting slower, meaning like to me as a listener, I was like, he's realizing he's no longer mad. He's listening. He might be pissed off, but he's not like mad anymore. He's not like, he's not like, F you or F this, whatever. And he's not Shades of Gray is like I don't just see black and white anymore. I see shades of gray. Like that's kind of what I got from it. And that's the end of side one. And then side two is like all that soul. He's got refinding that faith again. That's why I said this is like an arc album. I wouldn't say it's a concept album though. I do agree with Kyle's point with that though. It's like, but I will say there is an arc to it though. If you listen from start to finish, you're like, all right, you're taking on a journey of like how you can start off one way and then feel like less stressed or you might feel relieved. Truthfully, I mean, music can be therapeutic for some people, and I feel like it's a good one if people want to listen to it. Check it out.
Just to interject here real quick, A minor is probably what he was writing the song A minor variation, like the whole idea of writing the song in A minor.
Actually, no, you're right. Actually, it is in that key, by the way.
Musicians, that's funny how they do that kind of stuff. It's just like I love when they're clever about that, and also just kind of put that in there. And then also the shades of gray thing, it's kind of interesting when you're looking at the enemy line and you're seeing a shade of gray, meaning like those people are just doing exactly what you're doing. You should see them as black, as in like the enemy, but in reality they're tired of war too. They're just doing exactly what you're doing to survive. And it's like, instead of seeing things as like, so like I'm good and you're bad, it's like we're all part of the same equation of like, and I just lyrically, thematically, just well done, and just so diverse of all the different things he's touching on in his life, plus his view of life. So that's kind of,
I mean, wow, here I was thinking that Shades of Gray was inspired by 50 Shades of Gray.
Exactly. No, and
what an idiot, Billy Joel. Get a freaking clue.
Oh my god, how could you? No, but and actually, who I forget which one of you touched on, like the Shades of Grey, like the bop bop out of whatever it was.
Yeah,
there's a Cream song with that exact same, very very similar to it. On their first or second album, it's like bop bop. It's just a little different when he does it though. See what I'm saying there? He kind of like, he's like, remember the Cream song? He said this on Next Time. He's like, remember the Cream song? And he played it. I'm like, oh my god, he literally ripped off Eric Clapton.
It was different. And if you say anything, his lawyer will have your freaking ass. All right,
Billy, I know where you live and you know where I live. So it's okay. That's right.
Exactly.
But but I mean, and that was all just side one. Side two, of course, I feel like side two is much more of like the more in-depth, stronger side. Of course, that's just me though. I mean, that's my own interpretation. But I love this record to death. I mean, I could talk about it for a long time, and it's just like he's one. It really shows how artists can create good art in general and make it with just one person. If you're that good, do it. Taylor Swift does it with one other person. Come on, it's not that hard. It's not that hard, guys. Let's be real. But I just wanted to touch on this too while we're all here. It came out August 10th, 1993. River Dream was presented a more serious tone than found on Joel's previous albums, dealing with the issues of trust and the long-lasting love. It was rumored that this is what I was talking about. It was rumored that the lyrics from other songs on a minor variation, and The Great Wall of China stem from Joel's legal disputes with his former manager, and ex-brother-in-law Frank Weber, which actually I think he said was true.
Boo, Frank Weber, boo.
Boo. He was reportedly embezzled millions of dollars from Joel and used dubious accounts of practice to cover it up. That's what he was talking about with The Great Wall of China, how he just got screwed over. And that was in '89 before they made Stormfront with We Didn't Start the Fire on it. But yeah, this was an album that I thought you guys would actually get a really cool, interesting, like just take. I mean, guys, I know you guys, neither of you, I figured because neither of you have listened to a Billy Joel record from start to finish. If you're gonna listen to one, you can always go to The Stranger, which has like Only the Good Die Young and Scenes from an Italian Restaurant, and all the bigger, more well-known stuff. I'm really glad that I was able to show you both an album of his that had a lot more depth to it and a lot more like more styles and different arrangements. And what I'm really glad I was able to show you guys this. I'm glad we were able to spin the wheel and it landed on this. Truthfully,
Nice.
so yeah. But let's jump over. We've talked a lot about this album. Let's go to our rating, shall we? Do you want me to go first, or who wants to go first?
Yeah, take it away.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I do have. No one's gonna be able to see this, but I do have this on vinyl, literally next to me. It is.
You just disappear.
Just straight up green screen.
I'm disappearing.
You became the album cover there for a little bit.
I am the album cover 100%.
You are, yeah.
But it was really hard to find a 1993 vinyl of it, but I did get it on eBay. I'm not telling you how much I spent. That's besides the point, though. But for me, the more I listened to it, the more I thought about it, and given that it is his last record he'll ever put out, to me it's a solid 10 out of 10. There were some songs, listening to it over and over on my turntable, making it spin, watching it go off and over, I was like, this is I would almost say underrated to an extent, like not by no stretches, it's super underrated, but I think some of the songs of his catalog get looked over on this record. Like it's exactly to Mike's point. It's like, you can have a best of album, like, or a greatest hits, or like of like 30 or 40 years of an artist's career, and have a greatest hits be put out like that. But if you listen to an album, you actually can experience the true deep cuts that weren't hits that might actually knock your socks off. Like they both just said, No Man's Land stood at them. It was like, wow, I'm in for a treat. If had I not told them, had I not put this on the wheel and had them not listened to it, they would have been like, oh, well, what's No Man's Land? Is that a bar out in the middle of like Suffolk County, Long Island? What's going on here? It's like, seriously.
Also, the answer is yes, probably. Yeah.
There probably is a bar.
Is.
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, in all categories.
100%. But to me, it's like going back and listening to it over and over again, I was like, this just reminds me how good of a lyricist he was. And also now that he doesn't tour. Oh, sorry, he doesn't put out any. He still tours left and right, but he just will not put out any music. And he's also shown that new songs by older artists don't really matter to an extent, unless you make them a certain way. But new songs ultimately don't matter. If you go to see an arena show of a classic artist, you want to hear the hits that you've been hearing for the past 30 years, or 40 years, or 50 years to some extent. You want to hear those hits, and he learned that. And he's like, his choice of not making another album after this, I think, has worked in his favor, truthfully. So that's my little.
The question is, if he released a new album, you think he would not play those songs as much as he would the others, or you think he'd be like, "Oh, I'm playing all my new songs"?
Well, I honestly, I've been asked that question before. I hate to spoil that to you, but like
Quick sidebar, JT.
Yes,
there is a No Man's Land bar in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
No way! How about them apples, kids?
And
that's what you're saying.
The jukebox doesn't have anything but that album on it. You can't
only
select
that
anything
song.
else.
Yeah, only that song.
That's that one song.
Yeah,
and occasionally Piano Man.
Yeah,
exactly. Occasionally his signature song. No, but this is what was your question, Mike? I'm sorry.
If he knows his fans really want to hear his classic. I mean, especially with a massive discography, he has the best songs. But if he put out a new album today and went on tour, you think he would be playing a lot of his new songs, or you think he'd be like, here's one song from that new album that's the hit, and I'm done playing, though I'm going to play everything else everyone wants to hear?
I would say listen, this is a big if question, but if he did put out new music, my guess, and people have said whether or not it'd be a hit, that's a totally different conversation. But I think there was so much praise and approval of him just, making a huge comeback, because he was retired in like 2008-9 after his world tours. He's like, I'm done, whatever. Then he started up again and he made this huge comeback. I think honestly, I feel like he might play like if he were to write any new songs, he'd probably play like 3 or 4 of those songs off the record. Because if you go back onto at least I don't know how accurate this is, but it's setlist.com or whatever. Like I've looked up some of his set lists from like the River Dreams tour. And back then he was like playing like 4 or 5, maybe 6 songs off the record in general. And some of the songs he's never even played live. Like I said, when I saw him in February of 2018, he played a minor variation for the first time live ever.
Wow.
So it just shows you how some of his songs had never been played. I mean, for some of them were really bad, but that's the point. Like some of the songs, like he is, as to my knowledge, he has never played, at least in a no, I don't think he's ever played the song Rosalinda's Eyes off 52nd Street, 1978. I don't think he's ever played that. And that's 1978. So there's certain songs he'll just never play, or he might live debut. I don't know. It all depends on what they want to do because his Garden residency has been proven that he can do anything. But this, and he actually said on a podcast with someone, he's like, I've been trying to introduce more songs off the River Dreams into our set list. So that's been something too. But to answer to your question, I feel like he might play a little bit. So from a new record, if he were to write a new song, he's been composing music without any words for like 20 years though. He's been composing instrumental music for a while though.
Yeah,
I know that. So whatever. It's just they're not in song form. They have no words. It's just pure music. It's not like it's you know what I mean. It's not like it's It's not like it's a song. It's just music that's written out strictly for instrumental purposes, and he just doesn't want to publish it. So whatever, his prerogative. It's fine. But yeah. Long short, that was a long-winded answer.
I think that would come down to how commercially successful it was, to be honest.
I agree. And this one,
like look at Green Day with Father of All.
Exactly.
They haven't played a single song from that record since they went back to touring. Given COVID did, kind of mess things up,
right,
and postpone the tour by like a year or two. But still, that record came out in early 2020,
February 7th.
And other than the initial, like back before things got shut down, other than the initial like promotional TV performances of a couple of those tracks, they haven't played a single song off of it.
Yeah,
because it did so bad.
That's
and
exactly
then you have the flip side of that. Look at Panic at the Disco on their last tour, where they played a album that was not received very well by the fans or critics in its entirety every night, and cut out hit songs for it. So I think it all depends. Like if they came out and released an album that everyone loved and then they played that album front to back, I don't think people would care. So I think it all depends on commercial success of it, and kind of, I think he would know at this point in his career, like what songs can I cut if I want to add more,
Yeah.
I
like
think at this point,
you go to see Billy Joel and he doesn't play like Piano Man or like Only the Good Die Young, you're going to leave disappointed.
Oh, of course. There's some songs they have to play. There's some songs they don't play.
Yeah, at this point it would be songs from the senior center because he's definitely getting up there in age. So
he's 73 and he lost 50
from the
pounds.
early bird special.
Oh my god. I'm not kidding. He lost through COVID. He lost 50 pounds.
Wow. Yeah, COVID.
He never. I don't
know. I see you're saying that because of COVID.
He just naturally he was at home and he's like, all right, I'm gonna just pay my band and do what I gotta do. I don't know. It's a very unique scenario where this is his last album, and this is back when like people were buying CDs and lining up to go and buy CDs and stuff like that. And now it's his last one, and it's like a sad but sweet thing. And he's gone on record and said like even you watch like late night talk shows with him, and they're like, oh my god, why don't you put out new music? And he's like, I thought I've had my say. And then I asked my aunt, who actually is in the music industry. Just want to put that out there. My aunt actually works in the music industry. I'm not telling you what though. I'll tell you off camera. But I asked her, I said, Billy Joel has not put out any new music since 1993. What's the deal? She's like, the artist has to want to do it. So I don't think he wants to.
Right.
Well, no, I mean, even listen to the lyrics on Famous Last Words. I mean, he's got nothing else to say at some point. And I totally get it. At some point, you do have nothing else to say. Like I used to write music, and I'm going to be honest with you, I haven't been able to write lyrics in years now.
It comes.
So waiting for the Nights of Nothing to release a I'm
So
still
Mike,
waiting.
we're gonna be re-recording songs, but with better
Yes.
vocals.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna be in the front
So
row. I'm gonna be hammered.
under a different name.
Wait, you-
Mike's gonna
Gonna
go
happen.
drunk.
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be like, no, it's
He's gonna be
nothing. Yeah.
He's gonna
Yeah.
show up at the
Different-
theater, be like,
be
"Oh,
different
hey,
name,
Kyle, what's going on?"
Yeah. Hell
No,
yeah.
but this is just I've gone on way too long. Forgive me, but that's
Also,
my
real quick,
my
I do
thought.
just want to, JT, you mentioned this very briefly, and I just want to give props to him for being excellent to his band during
Yes.
COVID. They couldn't do anything. The man just paid them.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
whole
Just,
band.
There's something so respectable and honorable about that,
Yeah,
where it's not like, well, I have all this money. You guys depend on touring and I can't do it. I'll pay you anyway. It's great.
what a guy. Seriously.
Yeah, he's always been a respectful, whether it be paying for the I'm gonna give out the front row tickets to people who can't afford it, and like not let these kind of rich, kind of entitled fans, gobble them up and push everyone out of the way. He's always had a heart of gold, and clearly being embezzled and not entrusting too much in people who don't have your best of interests has kind of been, it's kind of been a downfall for him in that sense of like learning who you can trust, and that he can go forward and in the pandemic still be able to pay people the money that they need to get by and not be like in that, like I'm jaded from my previous experiences with letting feeling like people are getting advantage and taking advantage of me, that he can still have that mentality. He really is a unique, one of a kind artist who truly embraces the art over the money, and it's rare.
And I have seen him 4 times at the Garden over the course of like 2016, 18, just recently on Valentine's Day in February of this year. He does. It's become just really quick. His artist in residency there has become really like, he'll change. The set list changes a lot. I mean, for a couple months it doesn't change, but like for the most part, he'll bring out guests too. And if you guys want to go see a concert together, we can go see Billy Joel and we could hear the River of Dreams live and all that crap. Maybe I'm throwing it out there. I don't know.
Kyle's favorite.
Yeah. Oh God. Exactly. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, my long story, long-winded answer. 10 out of 10. It really holds up for me over 30 years now, and it still sound. And not even remastered too. If you go on Spotify, none of his songs are remastered. So it's just, he just doesn't care, I guess, to remaster, which is very fast. It's a very unique scenario, but it's very. He still sells tickets, so. But for me, it's a 10 out of 10. Let's go over to Kyle. What do you got today?
So for me, again, the album in the beginning is not as cohesive as I'd like it to be. I appreciate what he's doing in that, I'm not this, like Mike said, I'm not this like one trick pony. I can do all this. You can't put me in a box. And I appreciate that. And for the most part throughout his career, he's done all that very well. For the most part, there's some ups and downs in there. And I feel like just that you start off on this high of the record, you come in with No Man's Land, it's so good. And then Great Wall of China is still very good. Not quite at that high, but then it immediately drops off in the 3rd and 4th track. And then it picks up again. So for me, that kind of throws it off a bit. I think it would be a higher rating without those 2 songs for sure. But the rest of the album after that is really solid, 2 absolutely incredible tracks. So for me, it lands at about a 7.75. If those other 2 tracks weren't on there. And I've never been a proponent of 8-song albums, but I think this album would be long enough still. Like, it wouldn't feel too short if you got rid of Blonde Over Blue and Minor Variation. If you got rid of those 2, this album could have easily been maybe in the 9 category for me. It would still be long enough. The album would still be about 40 minutes without those 2 tracks. But yeah, 7.75. Lyrically, it's outstanding. Production wise, it's great. I can't say enough good things about it. Very impressed by it.
Awesome. Glad you're impressed. And Mike, what do you got?
Kyle's the villain, and this is funny.
He's the villain.
Oh, Mike.
because I had the rating at 7.71, right? Okay, that's crazy that yours is 7.5. That's like literally I was like, and I was gonna say 7.7 straight across the board. 7.7 was how I felt. But then, like I told you, I award an after point to the album for what it does as an album, like that it hits on all these different notes, that it has this overall theme, this message, these lyrical kind of just painting a picture, the album cover, all these things equate to bonus points for me as an album. If we were rating just the individual songs by themselves and then adding that ranking up, sure, I would have the same kind of almost the same ranking as you, 7.7. But because of all those different themes that just kind of came together and made this as an album that really had a message, and being that final album, I had to bring it up to an 8. I had to say 8 is where I sit. And it's a solid, not to blow you out of the water, but also just like through time, it just kind of continues to hold its relevancy and its the different influences that other artists have clearly borrowed from it, showing how influential it could be. And the fact that influential qualities to it that really I can hear today in the artist in many different categories. Yeah, I had to go with an 8 out of 10. Mr. Kyle is the villain. We need to have the villain like do something at the end of the video, like,
Well, Mike, I actually completely agree with you.
Yeah.
In terms of if I were to give it, that's where we differ. I don't award or take away points for things like that.
Sure,
but if I did, I would completely agree with you. I agree.
Yeah.
Me and you are very on par.
Yeah, this is
with
crazy,
this record, and it's really weird.
Yeah, I need to I don't know, just try to cleanse my mind, because Kyle's thoughts are getting in there. I need to go and I don't know, just like start burning like Green Day posters or something. And I was like, the spirits coming out. I don't know. But we're definitely, it's crazy, man. But we were like on the same page, man. That's nuts.
That is crazy. How the two of them are just like legitimately pretty much on the same page. Give or take a point or two. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it's what you guys have to say out there. Thanks so much for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us tonight. I want to complete and utter shout out to this guy down below me here. We do it live over Zoom. This guy, Kyle, the Q&A podcast. Check them out. Yeah. They're on all platforms, right?
All platforms, Spotify, Apple, whatever else there is. We're on pretty much all of it.
Pandora.
Also Sponsored by Polar. Polar.
I wish, Mike.
I'm kidding. Polar, we're not sponsored.
We'll gladly take the sponsor.
Yes. Thanks so much to Diet Sprite or whatever you call it. Whatever. We want to thank you all for watching, listening, however you enjoy us. Very interesting album. I'm surprised these two guys were in. I'm not gonna. I knew Mike was gonna enjoy it a little bit. I didn't know you enjoyed it that much. But I was surprised that both of you were on the same page practically. I'm like, what? That's crazy. So, but thanks so much for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us. I want to thank the two gentlemen for doing this every week. Of course, Kyle and Mike, you guys are great, and we'll see you guys next week. So stay safe, take care, and rock on.